Okay, I'm back. So I got a new camera because the last one I just looked at the video wasn't all that great in terms of focusing. So here is the mini lathe, right? And this is a picture of what it looks like in the lathe. And this is a picture of two that I did that you saw in the first video. And that was, so what happens inside of the Traveler, there are bushings that look like this. And you then bore through your sheave 3/8 of an inch to put the bushing in. Now, I'll show you this later, but one of the problems was I used a drill press to try to get a straight hole perpendicular. That didn't work very well because what the bit does is it pulls through this polypropylene, and it was much easier that I did on this one. I finally figured it out. You see how nicely centered that is as compared to the other one, which is this one. Not quite centered, but not really all that bad. I don't think it's this isn't rocket science. I don't need something engineered with a 1/1000th of an inch perfection for this stuff. But anyway, so once you get it centered and drill a hole all the way through on both sides, then I took a hand drill and just started the center hole, 3/8 inch on one side, and then turned it over. I didn't go all the way through, and then go through the other side, and then turn it over and go through the other side, and it came out much better in terms of centering the hole. The other thing I learned was the bushing actually gives you a perfect dimension of the width of what these need to be, because they need to sit flat on the bushing, essentially, like that. So the bushing is there on either side. And the way I didn't realize that after I cut them out. I cut them a little on the thick side and realized they needed to be a lot thinner. So I went over to my handy dandy Harbor Freight sander, and I would hold these things on the sander until they got flatter, and then turn them over until they get flatter, until they got up the right dimension, which was a little bit of more of a work than I wanted to do. If I'd have cut them a little thinner, then I would have done less work. Plus, you can't hold them perfectly flat, so they get a little bit uneven. But I think for the purpose of what we're using them for, I think they are fine. Can't be too much of a perfectionist here. Let's see, was there something else I wanted to say from the other video? So these are the two. Oh yeah, I was just going to show you how these all fit together. So that is how that one goes there. And this was the top one, so it fits like this. It's hard to do holding the camera, but I think you get the idea that it would fit like this and go through to the other side. You see how people can do this holding cameras like that. Okay, and then you have the bushing, and then you put a screw on the other side of it. So I needed these two, or the little teeny ones that I just made, and so I'm going to need to cut those out with a little bit more precision. The other thing I'll show you too, I think I'm pretty much done with those. Let me take these out, and I made a little jig for the chop saw, so the chop saw does a good job of making these pretty straight, so that's really not too much of a problem. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, let's go to the other side of the shop. Yeah, this camera is so much better. Sorry guys. Yeah, and actually in the darkness you can really see the shape of these things. Yeah, I think I talked about the file. I think In hindsight, I wouldn't have used the chisels on the when I first did it. I would have used the rasps. But I built a little jig to make the grooves because it went so much faster than trying to do that with the chisels. So that one looks pretty damn good. I made a little jig for the chop saw, so I stick this thing in the jig to hold it nice and flat. And then I put the jig on the chop saw, and then I'm able to cut it out. And that's how it works. And then if they're a little too big, I'll try not to make these too big, because again, I have the little bushings to measure exactly how big they need to be. And I'll get closer with this time, be more precise. And then it's all together. All right. So hopefully there's wind this weekend, because then I can try my new Traveler. And I've had the boat for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now, maybe longer. And I've never used the Traveler because, it was never in a condition to be used in. So hopefully I won't have so much weather helm if I use the Traveler. Okay, bye.